everybody, welcome to my channel. I'm Casey, and today I will be talking about the oldest missing child case in Jackson County, Oregon. A little girl disappeared almost 43 years ago with no trace left behind. In 1978, Christie Lynn Farni was a 6-year-old girl who had experienced a hard way to go so far in her young life. Her mother had died in a motorcycle accident the previous year in 1977, and so Christie was placed in the care of her biological father, Kenneth Farni, who allegedly physically abused her. Christie was brave enough to report the abuse to the proper authorities, and she and her 8-year-old brother James were subsequently removed from their father and stepmother's residence and placed into a foster home on the 50 block of Peach Street in Medford, Oregon. Christie and her brother had only been living in the foster home for 3 days when she was scheduled to testify against her biological father before a grand jury. On December 14th of 1978, Christie, this little 6-year-old girl, had to get up on the stand and tell a courtroom full of people that her daddy had been beating her, and she did just that. According to a KTVL 10 news interview with her brother James Dean, a Child Protective Services caseworker was supposed to drive Christie straight to school that day after she spoke in court, and then Christie and her brother would walk home together after school let out, which is something they always did. But instead, this day, the caseworker drove her back to the foster parents' home for some reason. Christie's foster dad was at work, and the foster mom was at home, but she was recovering from a recent surgical procedure and couldn't drive, so she couldn't take Christie to school at Jackson Elementary. Despite it being chilly out that day, the average temperature in Medford was only 30 to 40 degrees in December, and despite the fact that Christie had only been living there a few days and was not familiar whatsoever with the neighborhood, the foster mom gave Christie permission to walk to school all by herself. Christie was likely really wanting to get to school that day because they were having a Christmas gift exchange in class, and she had her gift with her all wrapped up and ready to go. Those gift exchanges are something most kids really look forward to, and she was probably pretty excited about it. Christie got dressed for school, got her stuff together, and then the foster mother watched her as she began walking down Peach Street headed toward the school. The foster mom kept an eye on her until Christie was out of sight. It was a 0.9-mile walk and probably would have taken Christie 20 minutes or so to get there, but she would never arrive at Jackson Elementary. At 1:30 p.m. that afternoon, the foster mother's phone rang. It was the school calling to say that Christie had never arrived. Now, I'm not sure why this didn't immediately set off alarm bells for the foster mom, but I also couldn't find a specific time for when Christie began walking toward the school. Some articles say early morning hours, while others say it was around noon. So if it was closer to 12 p.m., maybe the foster mom thought, oh, she just hasn't gotten there yet. She's probably still on the way. But you would think she would realize she already should have arrived if it was in fact morning when she left. Perhaps she thought it was a mistake and that they had just marked Christie absent simply because she had arrived to school late. Now, I also want to note it's a possibility that when the school called at 1:30 p.m., the foster parents did start looking for her. Maybe the foster mom called her husband and he came home from work and they drove around following the route Christie would have taken to get to school trying to find her. Maybe that's why it took them almost 3 hours to call police and they wanted to try to find her themselves before getting the authorities involved. They had only had this child in their home for 3 days, and it probably wouldn't look good on them that they had let her walk unsupervised. Just my thoughts. I don't know that they did or didn't take their own action to find her before calling police. That's just speculation on my part and my brain trying to come up with a reason it wasn't reported when they got the call from the school. However, by 4 p.m., when Christie did not arrive home after school, the foster parents did notify police and a missing child report was filed. Law enforcement, search and rescue, and volunteers from the community conducted searches of the area. They brought out the sniffer dogs. They went door to door in the area she would have been walking. But this little 6-year-old girl, who had already endured so much in her life by the age of 6, was never found. No one reported seeing Christie walking. No one came forward saying they had seen anything suspicious. No vehicles driving around that weren't normally there. No sketchy people lurking about. There weren't surveillance cameras all over the place in 1978 like there are now. No Ring doorbell cams on homes like so many people have these days. Whatever happened to Christie went seemingly unseen by anyone. Her biological father, Kenny, was suspected at the beginning. He did have a motive, but he denied having any involvement. He and Christie's stepmother did cooperate with police. They were questioned, and the father passed 2 polygraph tests, so they were ruled out.
We really looked at pretty much everyone we could, from the father that was being accused of physical abuse to the foster parent.
Other family members and others that knew Christie were checked into as well, but investigators couldn't come up with any evidence that someone close to her had done anything. They never received any substantial leads into what in the world happened to Christie. Christie's half-brother, who lived with the biological father, Kenneth, when Christie disappeared, committed suicide just months after Christie went missing. He was only 13 years old, and I do wonder if him taking his own life had something to do with his sister going missing. That had to be hard for him, losing his sister, or maybe he knew something and just couldn't handle it. Investigators did intend to question him, but he died before they ever could. Years after Christie's disappearance, someone actually confessed to killing her. Serial killer Henry Lee Lucas said he had abducted and killed Christie. Investigators went all the way to Texas to speak with him. He actually gave them locations where he said Christie's remains could be found, and these areas were searched and dug up, but nothing was found. Henry was a pathological liar, and he was notorious for confessing to murders he didn't actually commit. He enjoyed the attention, which is disgusting, and he liked sending law enforcement on wild goose chases. His confession was disproven, and he ended up recanting most of it. Law enforcement doesn't believe he had anything to do with Christie going missing. Now, there are several theories. Some believe that Christie was abducted by a family member and killed, or perhaps taken to a safe location and hidden to get her away from her allegedly abusive father and get her out of foster care. Some of Christie's family members believe her foster family may have been involved, but they too cooperated with police. Another theory is that she was abducted by a stranger with no ties to her whatsoever. She was a tiny little thing, weighing only 50 pounds. It could have been easy for someone to pull their car up beside her and snatch her up. Maybe they didn't even have to grab her. They could have offered her a ride to school, and she may have willingly gotten into the vehicle. Some believe Christie's father, Kenneth, despite being ruled out, was responsible. Could he have been angry enough about her abuse allegations against him to kidnap and dispose of her so she couldn't say anything else? The next one is my own theory. Well, no, I wouldn't even necessarily call it a theory, more of a question. I'm wondering, did they check into people at the school? What if she did make it to school? What if she did arrive there but was intercepted by someone employed by the elementary school? Someone she trusted and left with? Did any employees leave early that day or not show up at all? It's just a thought. There is zero evidence to prove any of the theories. Her father was cleared of the physical child abuse allegations in Christie's case, and he moved to California after Christie disappeared. In 1994, he died in Los Angeles in a car crash at the age of 47. Christie's brother James is her only surviving immediate family member. There are no suspects in her disappearance. Christie has family living in several states: Oregon, Arizona, Michigan, and California. And these relatives have been re-interviewed and checked into over the years. All this time has passed, and no one has said they know what happened to her. No one has come forward with credible information. Christie has never turned up or come out to say she's okay if she is still alive. Her disappearance is still unsolved, and her case is classified as a non-family abduction. Now, there is a very interesting comment on another YouTube video that was done on this case. The video was uploaded by Nancy Schaefer, and the comment was left by someone claiming to be Kenneth Farni's granddaughter. I did some digging before I decided to mention it in this video and found where a blogger actually checked into it. I'll credit the blog and explain here in a minute, but the comment on the video said, quote, "I'm pretty sure that my grandpa Kenny Farni did in fact kill her. We have heard multiple stories in the family, but the most recent one is from my aunt after her husband passed. Her husband is my grandpa's brother. She waited until her husband passed to tell the story that he did in fact pick her up after the court date, beat her to death, and then had the brother help bury the body," unquote. When she says he beat her to death, she's referring to Kenny, Christie's biological father that Christie testified against. According to the Here with Risks blog, which I have linked below, the police have spoken with the granddaughter about her comments on the YouTube video, and there's no evidence or proof that it actually happened that way or that the dad and his brother were involved. I do wonder what else the family is saying. Family DNA is on file, but so far there has not been any matches on any ancestry sites, like if Christie were alive and did one of those DNA kits. There haven't been any matches to Jane Doe's either. At the time of her disappearance, Christie was 3 feet 8 inches tall and weighed 50 pounds. She has brown hair, brown eyes, a burn scar on her chest, and pierced ears. There are age progression photos available of Christie. Please share Christie's flyer and share this video if you think it will help. I believe that no matter how much time passes, a case can still be solved. If you have any information on Christie's disappearance, please contact the Medford Police Department at 541-774-2250 or the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children at 1-800-843-5678. My hope is that Christie is still alive, living her best life, maybe under a different name and maybe even with a different family. If she is now 49 years old. Someone out there knows something, perhaps even someone watching this video. So will you be the one who looks away or the one who does something about it? Thank you all so much for watching. As always, I mean absolutely no harm in doing these videos. I'm simply trying to spread awareness on these cases. I post a new video every single week, so make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss when I upload. And I would also highly suggest checking out my entire missing playlist, as each case I cover is so important and needs more exposure. Thanks again, guys, and I will see you all next week.